My name's Jacob Vernick. I'm a sales engineer here at NewBlue, and welcome to Discover Captivate, a brand new webinar series from NewBlue. I believe this is around like our 10th or 11th webinar. We're hitting full steam, but we haven't really dove into the title designer, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So with basketball season in full swing, we kind of thought, let's show some people maybe how to create a custom scoreboard. So typically we've been showing how to use any of our templates and grab those and build full projects based on those. But today we're going to get a little bit more nitty gritty and dive into the individual creation of a single graphic in our title designer. So if you're unfamiliar, Captivate is our live graphics and production powerhouse. It is built for producers who want flexibility without compromising on design. So if you are a one-person show, if you are a large studio team, Captivate gives you the ability to deliver broadcast quality graphics that elevate your brand. So if you've struggled with creating unique looks, updating graphics quickly with new data, or navigating overly complex tools, you're in the right place. So the trials are in the chat if you want to pop in and follow along. If you already have an account, like I know some of you do, you can feel free to open that up and use your version today as well. But let's dive in. I'm going to start off by showing you a fully baked basketball project because if you are new to this, what you might not know, we like to share these projects afterwards with all of you so that you have access to them and can just start from, maybe a little bit better of a place, right? So just give me 1 second to optimize my video right here. If I can find where this option is. Optimize for video sharing. Now we're talking. Oh no. I might have, I don't know. I'm gonna be able to. All right. So here we go. Did I? All right. I think we're all good, right? I think I
Yep.
lost. Yeah, okay. I lost you guys on this window, but we'll figure it out later. All right. So what we've got here is a full basketball project, right? So we've got an intro video. This has a music file playing with it as well, so that you can, bring in an MP3 file, bring in an AAC file, and then maybe we're going to cut to our commentators who are talking about today's game, right? A lower third graphic. We've got, media sequences. Maybe you want to show some commercials during your game. You've got the ability to bring in any MP4s, put them into a playlist, play them back to back. And then we've got different sorts of things, right? Like stat graphics or maybe single player graphics, full screen schedule graphics, lineup graphics. And using these lineup graphics, we can go between our different teams, right? So we've got the Owls versus the Bulldogs and everything. We've got the orange and the blue and the animating. And then what we're going to look at today is how to kind of create our own custom scorebug. So what I'm going to do, the way I'm going to walk you guys through this is I like taking inspiration from other places, and maybe you feel similarly, right? Maybe you're watching NBC, ESPN, ABC, any of the big hitters, and you see a graphic and you're like, I really like that, right? I want to build something in NewBlue and Captivate that looks just like that graphic. So maybe you're more talented, maybe you're more creative than me, and you want to just build something from scratch. That's great too. But the way I'm going to walk you through this today is just kind of building on top of this graphic. So rather than building from scratch, we're going to be building from a jumping off point, and I'm going to walk you through how to do that and maybe a little bit more of what I mean in case that isn't clear. So I'm going to open up a new project. To people who are new here, Captivate is Windows and Mac friendly. So if you wanted to run this on whatever machine you want, you have that ability. We've got our bunch of our panels right here, right? Our project panel. This is where all of our graphics are going to live. Program monitor right here, which is what we're going to be sending our graphics out. Little drop down here where I can select, am I sending out NDI, HDMI? Am I going to OBS? Do I have an SDI card hooked directly up to this? Uh, we've got the ability to add multiple channels as well. So if you wanted to have unique inputs on your switcher, you can send out multiple channels of graphics. Maybe channel 1 is all your graphics. Channel 2 is all of your your VOD content, your VO files. Maybe channel 1 is just your scorebug, and channel 2 is everything else. Um, Down here, we have the ability to add a bunch of new items, like media sequences, graphics. After Effects compositions is a great feature we have where you can load up an AEP file or a MOGRT file directly into Captivate. Any of your live audio and video sources or any of these sorts of things can come into your project. We usually spend more time in the library up here. This has tons of different graphics, and again, is a great starting off point. And the what I urge you to do, the best way to learn how Captivate works is to reverse engineer some of our graphics. So if you want to see how we do timeouts, if you want to see how we do possession arrows and things like that, look at the graphics that exist, open those up in the title designer and take a look, because you're not going to get better information than seeing how we do it than by all the graphics that are in our collections. So Flux is always my favorite sports graphics. I was showing you a lot of these in that pre-created project I have. It has standings, schedules, single players, rosters, head-to-head, scoreboards, everything you need. But again, the idea today is I actually don't want to really use any of these, right? I want to create my own thing from scratch. How can I do that in Captivate? So the number one way that you can do this in Captivate, you're going to come right down here to add new item, and you're going to select title or graphic. And that's just going to give you a very basic lower third, right? As basic as it gets. But this is the easiest way that we can start from scratch. So I'm going to click right here on edit, and that is going to launch the title designer. So in the title designer, there's a lot of different options, right? Over here on the left, this is where we're going to make some updates. This is where our variables are going to live, or any of our, the changes that we're going to make to the graphic, like the color or the kerning or anything like that. If you wanted to change the view, you can come up here to view and then see a bunch of different things, right? And you can change the layout however you want it to be. Up here, this is our canvas. This is where we're going to be building what we want. And down here is our timeline. So if you wanted to adjust the animation and how it is going to work and the timing of everything, right, that can all be done down here. Obviously, I'm not doing a lower third. I'm going to delete this name, delete this subtitle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in an image of the scoreboard I want to create, right? So I showed you that little scorebug in the bottom right-hand corner that I created earlier. And now I want to bring it in and just kind of like build on top of it, right? To me, that was what made the most sense. That was the easiest way to do it. I just took a screenshot of something else I wanted to build in, brought that in, and then built natively in New Captivate on top of it. I'm going to do the same thing here. So the first way I can do that is if I come up here to View, and then I go to Preview Background. So this gives you a few options, right? This is just saying, what do I want my background to be? Do I want it to just be white? Do I want it to just be black? Or do I want it to be an actual image? So I can come over here, select image, select that this is the scoreboard I want to be. And now that's my background, right? You see it's not on the timeline. It's not actually a part of the graphic. It is just the background of what I'm building on top of. This actually isn't the way that I want to do it, just because it becomes a little bit harder to toggle it on and off to see your progress. So what I'm going to do is go view, and I'm going to just make this, again, a black background, but I still want to bring it in. So I'm going to come up here to File, Import, and now I have a ton of different options that I can bring in. So this is just the first thing I wanted to show. If you have outside elements that exist, right? So for example, if you've already created something in After Effects, you want to export maybe an individual layer as an MOV file or a PNG sequence, you can just come up here to File, Import, and bring those directly into your project. Same with a PSD, EPS, whatever your file type is, you can bring those directly as sources into the title designer. What I want to do right now is just bring in an image though. So I'm going to go to image and I'm going to bring in this scoreboard reproduction and I'm just going to build on top of it. Now, one thing you'll notice, or maybe you won't, I built this out to be a 1920 by 1080 image. So I took a screen grab of a full screen because I wanted the placement to be correct too, right? So I've got this down here. The only difference between this and that preview background thing I showed you a little bit earlier, obviously now I do have the ability to kind of move this around, which maybe I don't even want sometimes. So just be careful with it. Make sure you're not dragging and moving it so it doesn't get things out of place. But this is a great way to start and be able to just kind of quickly toggle it on, toggle it off, and see the progress that you've been making as you've been going. So I'm hoping to have as much time as I can to cover as many different things as I can, but there's a few core concepts I want to get to. But let's start building this out, right? So I'm going to just start by adding a shape, adding a rectangle, and this is just going to be my background rectangle, right? So I'm going to just come in here, select this layer right here, and now I'm just going to move it over here. And I just want it to be the right size. Another option up here, I've got my zoom. I can toggle my zoom. I can use these handlebars to move around. I can also click right here and drag to move this around as well to get down into that bottom right-hand corner. Now, this is just going to be kind of a general background right here. It's not going to be doing too much. We're only going to see it maybe as like a few lines in the background. So we're just going to get this right. One thing I want to do with this, though, I want to make sure that my corners are rounded a little bit. So easiest way to do that, I've got my rectangle right here. Come over to motion and data, and I'm going to adjust the radius. So I can, round these as much as I want. You can see right there that they get rounded. And then I'm just going to find something I like, maybe right here around 16. And that gives me that first background rectangle. I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard to move it back and forth. I can also use the transform tab over here to rotate it, to move it around as much as I want. It does animate in 2 and 3D space, as you can kind of see right here. So all you got to do is click right there on that globe kind of icon, and that will let you move it in 2 and 3D space. All right, so I've got this. I'm going to make it black real quick so that I can do that over here in my style tab. And then I can just select what color I want it to be. So this is going to open up a color picker. If I want to do it this way, I can just drag it to black. I can also use this guy right here if I wanted to just kind of click right here and say, make it this black. And it would make it that version of black. So I've got my background rectangle. Again, I like toggling this kind of thing on and off so I can see my progress as I'm going. And now I'm just going to add my bottom rectangles right here for my my period, my clock, and my shot clock. So I'm going to come down here, add shape, and let's add another rectangle. We'll zoom out again just so we can grab that rectangle and move it on down. I'm actually going to hide this square right now because we don't need to see that too well. All right, so I got this one going. I'll make some finer adjustments when we get down there, and then I'll add another rectangle right next to it. Cool. So let's zoom back in and make some finer adjustments. All righty, so I'm just going to make this the same size again. I'm going to round these edges as well. I can type this in as well if I wanted to, if I know exactly what I want this value to be. And then I can move this all around too. Now, one thing I'm going to want to make sure of is that these are aligned properly, right? And I'll show you the easiest way to do that. You know what? Actually, I'm just going to put this back here, make sure that this is on top of it. Great. And now if I want them to be the same color, I can just kind of hide this, make sure rectangle 3 is selected, and now I can use my color picker again, right? So I can come over here and say, I want this rectangle to be this color. I want this rectangle to be this color. And I have, there we go. Now we're building something out, right? We're making a little bit of progress. Again, I'd probably change this to be 15 just to round these edges a little bit. And then, again, to make sure that they are aligned, you can command click on these two layers in your project, come up here to alignment and align objects. So this gives you a bunch of options. How do you want them to align, right? Should they align all the way to their left? Should they align their tops, middles, bottoms? I'm going to say for now I want them to align their bottoms, and you'll see they didn't really move much because I did a pretty good job, but that will make sure that both of these graphics are perfectly aligned in your graphic. All right, let's start adding some text because there are some good lessons here to learn about creating a custom scoreboard, some things that we do in a unique way to make sure that you can do what you want to do in Captivate. So again, let's zoom back out and let's talk about text. So when you add text, you have two options. One, you can add static text. Two, you can add variable text. Static text, you don't expect that text to change, right? Maybe it's the name of your school, maybe it's the name of your channel. It's something that, depending on the day in, day out for your broadcast, that text is going to be the same. An example of something that I have as static text in this scoreboard is fouls. The text that says fouls is never going to change. Maybe sometimes you want it to say bonus, you want it to change, but right now I don't have that text saying fouls being changed. Anything that's going to be variable text, this is something that you're going to want to either use data or have the ability to update in some capacity. So there's really no harm in just making everything variable text and make the render a teeny bit longer in the long run. But I tend to make most things variable text. Only things that I know for sure I never want to change are things that are going to be static text. So I can come right here and it's just going to give me a default enter text, right? And now I can change what I want this to be. So this is going to be my period and I want it to be displayed as first, right? Over here, we got a bunch of options, right? We can select from any font. You can use custom fonts as well and put these on any font that is on your machine you will have access to. The one I've been playing around with a little bit is this alphabet font. Right here is where you have some other options. If there's like, different weights of the font, if there's like a light version or a bold italic version. Just to give you an example, we can choose Arial again to see, regular italic, bold, narrow. So if you have all those options, they will be right there. Font size, of course, you can go as low as you need. You can also type something in. And then, of course, bold, italic, underline, all caps, justification, top, middle, bottom. Your leading and your kerning, right? All these right here. And then this one of my favorites, right? So this is what allows you to define how your box should react, how your text should react, depending on the information that is in it. If I set something to be fit box the text, let's blow this up a little bit, and I type in my name, you can see that it is just going to continue expanding, right? It's just going to stay that same 22 size font and continue growing. But maybe I don't want that, right? Maybe I want the text to the shrink. That's fit text to box, right? So now you can see as I keep typing, the font keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So that's what fit text to box is going to do. Captivate does have a bunch of options where you can kind of resize depending on the length of the text. So if you're doing something like, fit box to text and you want the background to expand and contract, that's something that you can do right down here with object following and resize. We're not going to spend too much time on that, if any, today, but just wanted to make sure that that is on your radar. All right, so we're going to go back to making this first. We obviously want our box to be smaller. I'm going to say that the default should be like 6 for this maybe, and we'll shrink the box down a lot. And now we're going to drag this right down there. All right, obviously we're not seeing it. We want it to maybe be a different color. So let's just make this a black. And now we've got our font. All right, one of the first things we're going to talk about today that is, well, we've talked a lot, but one of the things I really wanted to talk about today is the concept of text variable translation. When you're doing a scoreboard, when you're doing any sort of production like this, the text that you want to display on your graphic might not be the same as the text that is the data that you are receiving, right? And a frequent example of that is our period, our quarter, our half, whatever you want to call it. Often the data that we're going to be receiving is just going to say 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 4, but you want to display first or second or third or something like that. And that is all done using text variable translation. So if I come over here to motion and data and I select text variable translation, this is where I can say for the input value of 1, display first, 2, second, 2.5, HT, and so on and so forth, right? Different data sources do this differently. So for some, it might be like 5 is overtime and 6 is final. I've seen others that do 9 as final. So it just depends on what your incoming data is. But now this graphic is set to no matter what if the data is 1, it will show first. If the data is 2, it will show second. One other thing I want to highlight real quick right here is the ability to rename these variables. So this is what it's going to show when you're outside in Captivate. So I'm just going to call this my period attribute. And now if I ever wanted to update it right here, I can do that. And you can see when I type in 2 and I click off of it, it says second right there. If I type in 2.5, it says HT right there. So that just shows us our text variable translation is working for this value of period. And we're rolling. We're building some pieces out. The next type of variable I'm going to show you real quick is the concept of a pattern variable. This is something that we use for clocks. Again, all of our baked in, all of our templatized graphics have all of these things. But if you're wanting to build something from scratch, or if you're just thinking of different ways to use these graphics, to use data, to manipulate, to get what you want, I want you to know what tools are at your disposal so that you can actually come in and do it. So let's add another layer of text, of variable text, and we'll just say that this is going to say 12 o'clock. We'll do the same thing. We'll make it this font. We'll make it this size. and we will drag this guy down to here. Again, we'll make it that same black font. And let's zoom in a little bit. Awesome. So we've got this right here. I can move this all around. Again, we can click on these two and we can say alignment, align objects and align their middles. And you can see how that one moved a teeny bit. Again, I'm going to say fit text to box, right? I'm going to make sure that it doesn't expand past this area. I could always, expand this and kind of center align my graphic a little bit better so that we get it, maybe a little bit bigger of a box. But the thing I wanted to show you here is this concept of, in our motion and data tab, we've got pattern variables. Pattern variable is just going to be basically a pre-rendered clock. A clock is obviously updating every second, if not every 10th of a second. And a pattern variable is what we just turn on and use to pre-render all of those numbers so that anytime it changes, our system is ready for it. It doesn't have to do any rendering at all. It just changes the clock and you're good to go. Again, a lot of the data sources are going to automate this. A lot of our graphics are going to already have this on. But if you're doing any sort of clocks, you can define right here what the expected format of that clock is going to be. And then we can render it out. Again, I can come right here and I can call this my game clock. And this is just renaming your variables and renaming your layers is just a very good habit to get into. So if I click right there and I click on rename, I can call this my game clock layer. I can call this my period layer, right? And so on. It's just a good habit to get into. This is like my shot clock background, just to keep organized. All right, so pattern variables, text variable translation, a couple of other things we'll walk through. I don't know that I'm going to build out this whole graphic today. One thing I will mention, these timeouts right here, these kind of dashes, this is text variable translation. I'm basically saying if I have a value of 1, show me 1 dash, show me 2 underscores, show me whatever you want. So if you wanted to make it circles, squares, triangles, whatever, use some wingdings, do it however you want, you can build that out. And again, I urge you to look at our graphics to kind of see how we are doing that ourselves. Let's build out a couple of these shapes, though, a couple of these more backgrounds, and then we'll see if there's any questions from the chat that I can address a little bit more for you. But let's add another rectangle, zoom back out, and we're just going to add these kind of like background rectangles for the teams. So we'll just do this first. We'll add another one here, and I'll go down and adjust them in a second. Just getting the general idea first, and then gonna go make the more nuanced changes in a second. Ooh, move that a little bit. There we go. Let's see. Edit. Cool. Just gonna put this one here. And did it again. This is, again, what I was mentioning with maybe wanting to use the preview background instead of the image because you might accidentally grab it and move it. But if you're paying a little bit more attention than I am, it's not too hard to just do that. All right. So we've got these all right here. Let's zoom in and take a look. So let's make these a little bit better. A couple things I'm going to show you about, changing colors and ensuring that you can make it so that colors automatically match based on their variable names. So I'm just going to get all of these right. That's rectangle 6. We got rectangle 5 right here. I find the arrow keys a little bit easier to use. All right. And then this one is going to be right here. All right. And now we can do some colors for these guys. So again, I can just hide this one, but select it and say that I want its background to be this gray. Same thing right here. I can hide this one, say I want its background to be this. Oh, I didn't change layers. Change this, and then here, and change this. So now I've got that, and I've got that. And again, I would, I'll up my radius a little bit to just give these some rounded edges. And I can do the same thing up here. I'm going to skip these here just because I want to do a couple of things with text and score and things like that. So let's zoom back out, add some text, and this is going to be our score. So 0, drag this down. Okay, add text, variable text, 0, and drag this down. Okie dokie. We're getting there. So now I'm going to just do what I've always done. Change my font over here. Change my font size. Okay. I'm going to do what we were looking at a little bit earlier. Oh, nope, not that. We're going to just change this to, well, let's get this back. And now let's make this fit text to box. Right. And we'll center align this guy. And we'll do the same thing over here. Make this. And again, if you were maybe thinking a little bit more on your toes than me, you might copy and paste these and, build it once so that you don't have to edit this twice. But sometimes the brain isn't operating at full capacity. All right, now we've got 2 centered scores right here, and that is good to go. Now, you might want the ability to change the color of these backgrounds, to change the color of this text, depending on who's playing today, right? And that is going to mean by making it a variable over here, right? So I'm just going to call this away color primary. Actually, the language we typically use in Captivate is visitor color primary. And then I can do the same thing over here and make this variable and tie this to home color primary. Now, why am I naming it something like that? Well, it's because if I wanted to make other things that same color, maybe the text of the team I want to be that same color, maybe the fouls counter I want to be that same color, anytime I select right here that home color primary should be that color, I make that update once, and it's going to update all of your different colors in all the different places as long as they're tied to home color primary. One thing to note about colors, if I come over here to this global tab, this is where you'll see all of your different variables. And you can see right here, I haven't updated these to say home score and away score yet. But by default, colors do not have the option to update live. Now, what does that mean? That means that when your graphic is on screen, obviously you need the ability for your score to update live, right? You don't want to have to take down your graphic every time somebody scores a 2-pointer. You want to be able to play that live. However, color is not a thing that we are anticipating that you change. So to keep render times even later, we say that by default, you can't update it live. So you're not going to be changing the background color of anything while you are live. If you do want the ability to update the color while you're live, we're not going to stop you. Just click this checkbox and that will give you the ability to do that. And now all of these different colors right here, they can be updated outside of Captivate outside of the title designer. All of these different text fields, all of this, anything that we are making a variable, I can click right here on my checkbox, come back out here, and you can see right here in my properties panel, all of those values are right here as well. I can select what I want my period to be. I can manually change my game clock. I can save my file. I always recommend saving more frequently than I have been during here, just because we don't have an auto save feature, and it's always good to just back up your projects as much as possible. Typically, when I'm designing, I set like a 10-minute timer just to save every 10 minutes because it's not in my brain as much as I want it to be. But you can see right here, right? Obviously, we're getting there. It took me about maybe an hour and a half to fully build out this score bug. And while we don't have that much time today, I wanted to show you a couple of core concepts. The last one I want to show you real quick is just the concept of things animating on and off of the screen, right? So by default, we have what is called our pause point right here. This is where your graphic is going to animate up to and then freeze at this moment, right? So it's going to say, hey, do all of this, stop right here, and then the data will continue to update and continue to animate. But this is where we're going to pause and hold whenever I click on the play button in my graphic. However, you don't want it to be as boring as I have it right here, where it just hard cuts on and hard cuts off. That's why we've built out a whole transition library, right? So if I come up here to view and then library, I can click right here on this arrow. And now I can come down to transitions, and then we have all these different transitions you can drag and drop onto your project. I was using, I believe, a grow transition on this. If I, was to click on any of these layers, like if I was to click on rectangle 4 right here, and I was to hover over any of these, it's going to show me, kind of the how it would animate on if I was, to drag and drop this onto my graphic. Let me turn off the background because that's messing with some things. But you can see like that kind of rises from the bottom. I can do different things here. This kind of rises from the middle or it expands out from the middle. And if I wanted to use this transition, I just drag and drop it onto this layer. And then there are different things I can edit, right? I can say, where do I want this graphic to grow from? Should it grow from the top to the bottom? Should it go from the middle and kind of expand outward? How much should I apply this to? The overlap, the scale, the speed, right? Do I want it to be normal, smooth, fast? How much should it actually fade? And maybe you're like, well, Captivate doesn't have what I'm looking for. Great. You can either keyframe right here, or you can come back out here to the motion and data tab, turn on keyframing, and then keyframe your heart's desire to build out the custom transition and animation that you want to build out in the title designer. I prefer to just drag and drop just because it can be a little bit easier, but hopefully you can kind of see right there how it's kind of expanding outward and giving me, what I want. I could just come into here and now, copy this transition, and I'm just right clicking, paste this transition as my in, and I can do that across all of my different layers right here. So those are the core concepts of kind of building out different graphics, adding your text, adding your scores, text variable translation, pattern variables. Uh, those were the main things I want to cover. Obviously, we didn't build out a whole scoreboard, but I think I showed you how to kind of do everything else that you might want to do. I'm going to quickly pop over and just see if there are any things in the chat right here. Let's see. Deconstruct a lower third. I don't know that I can do that right now. The glint and flare, cobalt lower third. All right, I'll see what I can do with that, Raheem. I can grab that in and kind of talk it through. Captivate crashes every once in a while. We would need to know a lot more information to kind of look into that. We do typically export crash reports. It's definitely one of the reasons why I said save frequently, save as much as you can. Also, make sure you're on the newest version of Captivate if you aren't already. I have seen so many fewer crashes on this most updated version. Came out in April. I mean, you just saw I worked in here for half an hour. Maybe I worked in here 2 hours the other day without a crash. But yeah, it definitely depends on things like your machine and things in your environment that I can't really comment on too much right now.
Also, Also, I don't know if you checked out the last webinar, Andrew, but our top support director actually showed us a little bit about how he could look in the message. You guys could look in the message log to see if there's anything after that. And then also if you can send a support package right after anytime it crashes. So you come in, download a support package out of the help menu. There you go, create support package, save that, shoot a message into Daniel
Our
or our
support,
support
yeah.
team, and then we can take a look at that. And it'll get to the developers faster if it needs to get to the developers.
Yeah, you got it. I weirdly, is it in Legacy maybe? Why don't I see a Raheem? I'm not seeing a network folder here. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking in alphabetical order and it goes MO.
Could be legacy.
Yeah, I didn't see network and legacy either. MO.
Oh, interesting. I'll look on mine.
Yeah. Is there anything, I know you, specifically, Andrew, I know you were here because you wanted to look at creating sports graphics. Yeah, Raheem, this is broadcast. Is there anything from a creation of the graphic perspective that we could, that you want to see that we didn't cover in this? Or is there anything about Captivate at all for anyone who's here that you wanted to see? This is the time to ask your questions in the chat. We'll get back to them as much as we possibly can. And then for any questions left over, we can put them, you can send me an email, we can schedule some time for us to talk or figure out how to go from there. But if there's anything else you guys want me to cover in here, let me know. Hopefully this great. Glad that was perfect. Yeah, if there are any other things about the title designer, about creating graphics, about using Captivate, NDI, SDI, anything like that, just let me know. Raheem, to answer your first question kind of about add-ons for versions below broadcast, That is what's going to be on sale for Black Friday. We have a few options. I know the one you're looking for is the Zoom one. I don't believe, more Zoom callers available. I don't believe that one is still available to this point, but I'll double check and look into it for you a little bit more. But things like SDI input and more channels in your project and more graphics. It's 16 channels of output that's available as well. All the pricing is on our website. Almost all of this will have some percentage off for Black Friday. It should be, Naomi, is it all up already?
It is up. I will put the link. In fact, you can either scan the QR code because I'll put that back on. I'll also put
Yeah,
the
go
link in
for
the
it.
chat right now. Let's see. Uh, shoo. There you go. And then, and Raheem, if you're not seeing what you're looking for, you may want, everything that is up for grabs is on that page right there. And then just put in your little feelers for later. I know we're thinking about Zoom, so we know that's on the docket.
For sure.
I'll share it. Boom. Or you can just scan. Yeah. So we got any upgrades. So if you're upgrading from either a previous version of Captivate or you want to go from present or sport to broadcast, 40% off. Pretty fantastic. And then all of the add-ons, instant replay, media sequencer, weathercast, all of you have one additional channel or 16 additional channels that we could do that you can add on to. Unlimited project graphics. Um, that is how many graphics are actually in your project in the side list, project list versus graphics on air. We also have that. Let's see. I think SDI input. Yep. All in there. And then all of our post-production products are also 40% off. So if you do anything post-production wise, with your broadcast, maybe you mark it for the next event, maybe you save that event and make something out of it for your viewers. That's also it's a great time of year to kind of jump on that.
Without a doubt.
Mhm.
All right, folks. If there's no further question, which crawl, Raheem? We can take a look real quick if you want. News crawl. I'll take back over the share for a second.
You could make a note about Glint too, Raheem, for
Yeah,
future.
that might be the way to do it.
Yeah.
Crawls, news crawl. Let's take a we can hop into the title designer. Kind of like that little thing right there. Yeah. I mean, we're doing any light to this? Yeah, we're doing a little bit maybe of the light settings over here. Uh,
We
maybe
are not
not.
seeing your screen.
You're
We see
not?
you.
Oh,
No, we see you, but
it
not your
says I'm
screen yet.
screen sharing.
Interesting.
It says you are screen sharing. Let's try it again. How about now?
There we
Participants
go.
can now see your screen.
Yes.
All right, that was
Yes.
weird.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, oh, there's this glint right here. Is it? Yeah. Oh, I mean, Raheem, this is just a PNG file. It's just a texture that we kind of put on top of it, and then we kind of animated it. Same with this one. It's just the same PNG file right here. So we're just kind of layering that on top and keep manually keyframing it
Oh, he said use the drop down on it. Uh, check out the effects that are on that glint.
overlap
Oh,
zoom, popping letters. So
mm-hmm.
that would be
That in an effect. The
overlap
overlaps.
zoom, popping
Mm-hmm.
letters. So it's kind of doing that to the glint. That's a cool effect. I like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the Zoom chat go?
What's happening?
Well, it's taking a PNG file.
Yeah.
It's taking a PNG file, which is just this kind of I can't find its full path right here, but it's just taking a PNG file, which looks like just kind of like a light. And then the overlap zoom is just an animation that it's kind of, expanding and then contracting to fit. And then it actually looks like it kind of moseys its way off the screen a little bit before this pause point. So it's just kind of there to, overlap, and then yeah, and then it just kind of moseys off. All right, cool.
TriCasters.
Yeah. Do we have a program like this for those as well? Not we don't have webinars for those specifically. I mean the TLDRs of working with us and a TriCaster is you're typically sending NDI from Captivate into the TriCaster, right? Which you can just do from this drop down, send NDI. We do have some macros so that if you wanted to control what's happening in Captivate from your TriCaster, you can set up those macros so that you can tell Captivate, hey, I want to play this certain graphic when I select this specific keystroke in my TriCaster. Three play, not really. There's typically no graphics on replays in my experience outside of telestration, which isn't a feature that we offer. Um, so we don't have any specific integrations with 3Play or anything like that. We do have our own very basic instant replay, which allows you to grab up to the last 90 seconds, set your in and your out point, and send that live if that's something you're interested in as well. And we're looking to optimize that in the future. But if you're looking to get into TriCasters, I'd recommend reaching out to Viz more to see what they can do. But if you're interested in learning more about how Captivate and TriCasters interact, we're here to help.